It's a Friday, which means we catch up with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring, and with his incredibly special coffee mug, it's Greg Garza's return to hang out with Beyond Goals. You see, all right, now for those that are, since this is only going out in the audio form, you're holding up your Sholos Greg Garza coffee mug this morning. Please explain the significance and the love you have for that mug.
Yeah, it's a mug that was given to us right after winning the championship in Mexico, the Liga MX, the Clausura 2012, which was a pretty special moment for all of us. I remember walking back into our locker rooms. We had actually played in Toluca. We got home at like 1 a.m. We went to the stadium. We had hats. We had these coffee mugs, and I just remember that was probably one of the most special moments in my career of seeing the stadium completely full at like 1:30, 2 in the morning, getting back from Toluca. So that was a special. My dad wanted to steal this coffee mug from me. There was no way I was going to let him steal it. So this is mine, a cherished memory for the rest of my life.
But since you have a cherished memory, how difficult is it to make sure that you're taking care of it so it doesn't get chipped, doesn't get dropped, all those? Have you thought about retiring it just to be sure?
Oh man, it might go in the office one day, but I've always, like I said, I think this is just something that reminds me every single day, the special moments. I think if I have something sitting in an office, I'll see it every day, but I won't get that cherished memory that's right then and there, you know. So I think having it in my hands every day is always a good flashback.
Completely understand. There were a couple of topics that I wanted to get into this morning when it comes to playing, mentoring, etc. And one of them kind of stumbled into us as we were getting ready here. In our, meaning you and me, our pre-production meeting, we talk about planning. And you mentioned that you had how many calendars? I've got 4 to make sure I
Yeah,
know what I'm doing.
I'm tied with you.
Okay.
With you to make sure everything is up to speed and make sure whether it is groceries, whether it is finances, whether it is whatever it may be. Obviously, with our Beyond Goals mentoring, obviously with my personal life, I need to grab coffee with somebody. All different things, right? And it's so funny, John, because that's one thing that Michael and I first talked about after retiring was what was the hardest thing to do after retiring? And for both of us, and I think for all professional athletes, it is creating a calendar, creating a plan for yourself every single day. Because if you think about it, for 17 years of my life, right? 13 years professionally, 17 years of my soccer career, every single day was made out for me, right? We had a manager or a coordinator, right? We had a coordinator that would send out the schedule of every day, whether it be printed or whether they send you a WhatsApp message or whether they send you the monthly calendar, and you would have that. Boom, you print that out, put it on your refrigerator, and every single day. We always used to say, Michael and I always say, the only thing we need to know is what color polo we need to wear on the next day,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't need to know anything else because our lives are so routine based and habit based every single day. We finish training, we know what we're going to do exactly when we get home, what time we got to pick up the kids from school, et cetera, et cetera. So retiring and now understanding the value of having a calendar, understanding the value of what planning can be, that is definitely something we now implement within our sessions with our kids that we work with. And we base it more so on compartmentalizing, right? The value and use of compartmentalization, right? Of compartmentalizing those necessities to keep yourself up to speed with whatever you have going on, especially with these kids. Sometimes they're in school, they have a history exam, and they're probably thinking about the game they have that night at 7, right? So how do you kind of plan ahead and say, okay, from this time to this time, it's solely based, right? Focus and concentration on this. And once that is finished, boom, you turn the page and you focus on that next thing that's about to come.
How long did it take you as an athlete to get into that rhythm of having everything either laid out, regimented, making sure that you had the personal responsibility yourself to stick to that schedule? How long did it take you as an athlete to lock in, to understand, okay, step 1, next step, this is my day, this is my day, this is my day, so I can be as successful as I can be?
I think from a very young age, you start to realize those routines and how important they can play such a huge role in just keeping your mind straight, right? I was definitely that type of player and that type of person still, as if I don't go to the gym today, right? I know right before I go to sleep, I'm going to be thinking, oh, darn it, man, I did not go. I'd probably be the person that if at 10 p.m. or, 11, when I'm laying down in bed, if I didn't go to the gym, I'm probably that person that's going to get up and say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for at least 15, 20 minutes right before I go to sleep. Even though it's going to spark all those endorphins and all those other kind of things, which is probably a negative thing, but that's just the type of person, I think, even the type of player I was. And I think most professional athletes are like that, right? You set your mind to something, that specific task or that objective or that goal, and you're following through with it no matter what. And for us, that routine base, whether it was eating correctly, whether it was eating at a specific time, like your pre-game meals, your post training shake, or your post game shake, whatever it may be. Those are things that they all almost become rituals, right? It almost becomes a religion, to where you are devoted to those routine based things that help you not only feel to the best of your ability physically, but also keep the mind straight as well.
When you mentioned the evolution of this, and when you get into that rhythm, it's hard to shake it once you're retired, because you get into routines. I think that it's interesting to hear that for your own personal benefit, it carries on after you're done, because there is that thought. It's like, yeah, man, I'm retired. I'm going to let myself go a little bit. I'm going to enjoy and things like that. But at the same time, I think that if you don't let yourself go and you maintain what you've had for that 15, 20 years or so, I think that it gives off that, and for lack of a better word, I think it continues to give off that aura of professionalism in every aspect of your life if you continue to stay locked into those kinds of things.
Most definitely. I think you said it perfectly, and understanding how to create new routines for yourself. And that can be a difficult process, I think, for a lot of pro athletes, and trying to understand how to create those new routines, and why those new routines need to be created to kind of keep yourself in check, and understand, what's next, right? And that takes a couple of months. It took me a couple months to start understanding the value of what a calendar can be like, to understand what a value of now 3 or 4 different calendars can be like. And it does help you in so many different ways. And like I said, I think it goes back to that word of compartmentalizing, understanding, those specific times when to use the most value of whatever concentration it may be in those specific moments, and then moving on to that next objective or goal that you may have within the day, within the week, within the month, or within the year.
How difficult is it to compartmentalize? Because I know that we have a lot of things on our mind these days, whether it's an adult or a student athlete or what have you. How difficult is it to compartmentalize? Because I would think that we're all thinking larger picture. We're thinking getting through the day. And these days I know a lot of folks are just thinking about getting through the day. How difficult is it to break things down into those most finite parts and sit there and it's like, okay, I can check this off my list, on to the next, instead of trying to get to the end of the book to figure out that the butler did it. We got to get through each of these chapters.
Most definitely. It can be difficult, right? I think it's funny because I have an Apple Watch, and it always, it says take a moment of mindfulness, right? It does that for myself even three times a day. I have it where it notifies me, and it kind of, it's a moment of self-meditation, right? It's a moment of self-meditation to where you just kind of close your eyes and kind of figure out, what's next, or what next chapter is going on for you, or whether it's to find that moment of relaxation throughout your day, or also like we just said, to compartmentalize that focus, right? And I think that's that word, is focus, right? And so whether it's speaking to these kids, or even for ourselves, it is understanding where that focus needs to be pointed in the right direction in each and everything that you're doing. One thing that I know that I did that helped me immensely before every single game was, whereas guys are talking in the locker room or getting ready before we're going out to warm up, or juggling the ball. And that's something that I probably would do as well in the locker room, because you have all that adrenaline inside of you, right? You're ready to just let loose and let it go. But there was a moment to where I probably set a timer for myself for about 2 minutes, and I would just sit in my locker. Whether I was closing my eyes or whether I was just looking at nothing in space, and I would just kind of visualize myself in that moment, right? Visualize not necessarily whatever is to come, but the things I need to achieve, those many goals I would set for myself throughout the course of every single game. And I think that's a great example of, okay, I have now compartmentalized my complete focus on the task that is in front of me, and I'm ready to go. And whether that was a moment of complete relaxation as well, and just getting the mind ready for what's to come, and kind of, settling down all of those adrenaline bubbles that are ready to just burst out. And those were moments that really allowed me to really put all of my focus and attention in that next task ahead of me.
When young student athletes and mentees hear stuff like that, do you ever get the weird looks? Do you ever get the snickers? It's like, oh, come on, no, you don't. You don't sit there and you stare off into space or anything like that. There's always something that you got to do. I mean, do you get those folks that you have to kind of convert into that kind of a thinking, or do they understand it from ground zero?
That is something, as we almost say, whatever works for you is what's best, right? That is something that worked for me, and I'm sure worked for so many other players that played at such a high level. And I think when they have the opportunity and the examples of someone who has kind of been there, done that, then it just kind of means that much more to the young ones, right? Another one is when we speak at schools, or whenever I speak at schools, or when we speak to young kids, or in our team sessions, and I always ask the question, how many of you guys here journal? And not one of them, even if maybe two or three of them raise their hand, thinking about raising their hand, they're not going to do it in front of all of their teammates, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll say, I journaled every single day for my whole entire career. And, once they hear that, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I journal too. And it's kind of like that, especially probably more so for men and guys, right? And for the girls that we speak to, a lot of girls journal. They have their diary, which is great because you're logging moments, you're logging reminders, you're keeping yourself in tune. You're essentially creating those routines and those calendar-like methods that will help you get throughout, that next week. And for me, it was so important because I would remind myself little tips and guides throughout the games, right? Of whether I would read those right before the game or whatever it may happen, right before the game, and giving myself that extra little reminder and telling myself, okay, my shoulders need to be facing this way, or whatever it may be, defensively, offensively, how to create all these different little tips and guides, and how important that can be, right? Even journaling. And that's also something to where you kind of have to really poke our mentees and poke the teams that we speak to and say, look, this works. This worked for us, and it worked for a lot of us. And if it's something that you feel comfortable you can do, I guarantee you they'll have some sort of not necessarily a full change of success, but it will make you feel that extra reminder to hopefully have that success.
Greg Garza hanging out with us, Beyond Goals Mentoring, and the Friday Free Kick here at SDH. And one of the other things that I wanted to get into, but you've opened this door again. Do you still have your old journals? Where are they? Do you still reference them even if you're not playing now? Where are those old journals?
Yeah, it's funny. I still have things within my phone, within my notes, things that I would reference, whether it was positives after a game, whether it were my strengths, all these different little examples that we give to our mentees to focus on, that confidence and mental strength aspect of it. We used to do mental conditioning a lot. That's what it used to be called when I was in the residency program with the under 17 national team. We would do it once a week, and then we were devoted to do it once a week, mental conditioning. And, I think a lot of us didn't realize it's kind of funny because I always tell people within those 2 years that I was in residency, they're the best years of my youth development life, because whether it was the mental conditioning, and in my own personal life, whether it was having a chaplain, we had a chaplain every week, other things where it was almost brainwashing us nutritionally, all these different little things that probably there are 40 top players within the country that were living together, training together every single day. And all these little extra things that were given to us. Well, out of those 40, I'm going to say maybe 5 or 6 of us went pro, right? I'm going to say out of those 40, maybe 2 of us ended up representing our full team. And I was probably one of those 2, but those little tips and little things that we got, those little extra things that we got throughout the week, I can guarantee you those 5 or 6 guys that really paid attention to it were the ones that most likely use those things throughout the rest of their career. And how important those were essentials to keeping that success. going and going. And I think just understanding the value of those things is so important. And journaling goes back to it. It's funny. I always tell my mentees that when I moved to Brazil and I was so young, my mom used to make me journal every single day. Whether it was something that I, had going on, whether it was a goal that I was setting for myself, whether it was a dream that I was setting for myself, and essentially I was writing down almost my future, and whether it was the craziest of things when I was 12 years old, and I would just write a paragraph, and I would sometimes draw a picture or whatever it may be of playing against, I don't know, Ronaldinho one day, or him being my idol, and you're writing down and you're writing these things down, and you're actually you're feeling that you're having something written down can mean so much more than just having it in the mindset, right? And you look at like Oprah giving her speeches of having people make these dream boards, right? These visualization boards to where they're putting down things that they're grateful for, or they dream about, or things that they remember, all these kind of things. And I was essentially doing that with lessons that I was learning playing in Sao Paulo at such a young age, writing down the things that I want to dream about in the future. And I think those shaped not only the person that I was and being a 12-year-old and growing up extremely fast, but at the same time, understanding that, okay, 15 years later or 12 years later, or in that case, 5 years later, I was living those dreams, right? And living those dreams to full effect, something that I probably would have never thought of at the age of 12, but just writing those things down in my journal. And my mom still has those journal entries, which is pretty cool.
But at the same time, though, it's something that, and we talk about habits and continuing to have good habits that can carry you through, not just, playing career or what have you, but even if it's a segment of your life as a mentee, and it's not something that ends up being a livelihood when you get into your 20s and such. It's stuff that you can keep with you in whatever profession you get yourself into, even after athletics is over, because those lessons can continue to be there with you, and those habits are there with you as well when you're out in the workforce, whatever the quote-unquote workforce ends up being for you.
Most definitely. I am a true believer. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Right. You even use that terminology, and just keeping yourself, truly, focused on what's in front of you. And if something's leading you to have success every single time you do it, then why change? I'm the type of person, if I find a really awesome restaurant in Atlanta, I'm probably going there all the time. I'll try some new things every once in a while. If I find something else, I'll probably stick to it a really long time. But I'm devoted and very faithful and loyal to things that make me feel great. And I think that's so important for guys that are playing at the highest level. If there's something, we can talk about Darlington Nagbe eating as many Swedish fish and sour patch and having a cheeseburger before every game, and that's something that works for him. And that would never work for me, because I probably would feel like crap playing every single game. But it's something that he does it, and he is able to be so successful on the field and still keep, his 12-pack physique and whatever it may be. But it just goes to show you that every single person is so diverse and so different in their own ways. But as long as it takes them to a successful moment for themselves, then keep it the same. And it kind of ties along with, now you think about Atlanta United right now, right? They have a huge decision to make within this next game, right? And we don't even need to say what it is, right? And they have a huge decision on who starts, right? And so I think that's certain coaches, you kind of think, okay, if it's not broken, no need to fix it. What's my question, especially for Atlanta United, is what is going to be the starting lineup for this next game against Orlando? And so that's kind of ties in all together with trying to understand what is needed and what makes you feel the most successful. And especially knowing Mexican coaches and just the Mexican nature, they are very superstitious. They're very like what I just said, of having the terminology of what's not broken, don't fix it. So I'm interested to see what's going through Pineda's mind this weekend, and seeing what the starting lineup is going to be, and how do you manage certain personalities within the team to if you keep it the same of what this next lineup will be against Real Salt Lake. How do you manage all these different personalities and keeping a calm locker room?
But you're getting Luis Aruju back off of his yellow card suspension as well, and it's blood feud, and we can get into this too. For those, the fan base knows, the 17s know that the purple team, and I don't think I can even mention them by name here on the show, by the name of the city, but the purple team, it is not a team that is well liked here in the SDH footprint. For those who haven't played in a game in blood feud against the purple team, what is it like going up against that group of folks?
I'm gonna call them Orlando.
Okay,
that sounds good. I like that.
Or Lolando.
I like it. I just created that. Orlando. Let's do it.
Orlando. Right? Okay. So what's it like going up against the don'ts?
Going against the don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just my honest answer. It was another game. There was. I don't know if there was an extra pool to it, or something created within our own fan base, which is amazing to see. But I think for us as players, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. The craziest and most intense games that I played was not against Orlando, and I think if there were to be a true rivalry, it would be Atlanta, New York Red Bull.
Okay.
And that for me, and even though you have the red and blue for New York City and New York Red Bull, but I would tell you the games that we played in those inaugural years that were the most intense games. If you think about that first game of the season, how intense that game was and how much tension there was. Carlos Carmona got a red card in the 65th, 70th minute. I don't even remember what minute it was, but he had stepped on Felipe, right? And so it was like there was just this initial tension that was created against that team, and it just kind of kept building and kept building and kept building, even until the Shield, us not winning in on the Shield, and then beating them in the semifinals to the Cup. So it's all these different things that I think, that's my personal opinion, right? But the games against the don'ts has always been something special for, I think, the fan base, and it's always been something that's the tifos that are put out and everything that's created within the stadium. And it's going to be awesome having that at home and seeing what ideas they come up with to make it such a cool atmosphere. I think that's been the best part about seeing those games.
Yeah, I am looking forward to seeing what the TIFO is going to be on Sunday afternoon for the matchup against the Don'ts, because we know that, could it be revisiting one of Atlanta United's favorite holidays and Father's Day? Is it going to be another Father's Day card or something like that? It is going to be the imagination of the 17s. I am really looking forward to seeing that on the weekend. One of the other things that I wanted to get into you with this morning is where we are. And it is in the perpetual secondary transfer window of Major League Soccer that doesn't seem to end, or it does, and it comes back, and everybody's planning. You got guys coming in, and then it's like they're practicing, but they're not official yet, but now everybody's official. Being traded, changing locations. What is that like as a professional athlete, either as something that you were basically told was happening or something that you thought was for the betterment of your career? Because it can go one of two ways. It can be something that you think you have to take that step in to be better, or it's something where your employer thinks they need to be better and they are trying to do it by making sure that you can go someplace else and be better as well. What is it like having either that decision that you have to make yourself or the decision being made for you as an athlete?
Yeah, I think it's I think the best pros are the ones that are able to adapt in any place wherever they play, whether you are moving to a different country or whether you are moving to a different state. Even within the United States, how culturally different every place can be is pretty crazy. whether it's the Northeast, whether it's SoCal, whether it's NorCal, it's the Deep South, right? Every place is very culturally different, which is truly beautiful. But there are guys, and even more so, I would say probably families, that can sometimes have a hard time adapting into new situations or new circumstances, new environments. And that can play such a huge role on somebody's success within that certain or particular city. But it can be a tough one sometimes. But I would say, it's such that's a hard conversation to have, because you can have guys that I look at maybe Miram, for example.
Yeah.
Look at his time in Orlando and how difficult that process was to adapt there, and how culturally different it was as well. And then, having success in Atlanta, and then going to Real Salt Lake, or success in Columbus, and sometimes dealing with, the ups and downs of dealing with what the lifestyle is like in Columbus. So I think that's a great example of a guy who's moved all around the league and kind of had a roller coaster career depending on the location, right? Of sometimes being traded into spots, whether it's willingly or clubs decisions. So, you look at so many different examples of guys all around the league that have been traded so many different times, and you kind of ask yourself, what is going through their minds and how they feel in particular cities, and how they're able to continue that success, wherever it may be. I even used myself, for example, right? I felt so comfortable and so at home. And I mean, this is where I retired in Atlanta, and it feels so good to be in a place to where I think this was my first home after being out of the country for, since I was 12 years old. Right. So coming back to the States and living back in the States, this is the perfect place for me to choose. And I think this is why I'll probably call this place home for probably the most likely the rest of my life. But it reminds me so much of my upbringing in Dallas and Texas. And I think Georgia and Texas have so many similarities, of just the nice people and how everyone is culturally, and so many similarities within that point of view. But at the same time, then getting traded to Cincinnati, and that was a trade that was on both parts, right? It was a decision that I had to make, one for my family at the time. And at the end of the day, our careers don't last forever, right? So we always have to make those decisions based on what is best for, the future of our lives and the future of our families' lives. And that was a huge culture shock, not only for myself, but for my family at the time. And being in the Midwest is so much different than the South. The people in the Midwest are very different from the South, right? It's not a place, I was used to as a kid. You wake up every single day and you're waving hello. You're asking everybody's life story to your next door neighbors. And in the Midwest, it's not something that people do. People don't wave their hands and while you're driving in the neighborhood, right? Some of them do, but not all of them. And so it's just different. It's just different mindset sometimes of how comfortable you can feel in certain places, and the success you can have in certain places as well. And like I said, I use myself as an example, and having so much success and even as a player here in Atlanta, of winning a championship and then going to a new inaugural team and getting last place 2 years in a row. Right. So, it can be difficult sometimes to adapt to new places, especially when those trades happen. So you kind of hope that these guys just have the ability to adapt anywhere they go and kind of find happiness with whatever it may be. And just kind of hope for the best whenever those trades happen.
And that was why I wanted to bring it up and kind of introduce it to a mentee level, because you've got players these days, and we've got Caleb Wiley as an example, who is 17 years old, and he's putting in quality minutes with Atlanta United. You have these athletes now who aren't the 22, 23, 24s when they're starting their careers. You have athletes who are 16, 17, 18, and they're getting these decisions. They're being sold on to European clubs and things like that. It's a different dynamic, and that was why I wanted to ask about the changing of the locations with all of the younger influence now, because it's younger guys who are getting to see these, and they're growing up faster than they would have probably in other situations.
Most definitely. And I think that's why I think I've said it before on the podcast as well, is understanding the value of what it's like to spend time with guys that have experience. Sitting down with the guys that are the oldest ones in the room is what is needed whenever you are in those situations, especially for these kids that are so young. If they're having the opportunity to play at such a high level and play professionally at such a young age, you have to have it in your mind to sit down with the guys who have been there, done that as much as you can, right? It's always great to be a kid. It's always great to, have your friends around you, which is awesome. And you need that. You need to never stop being a kid, especially if you are that age. But you look at the likes of Caleb Wiley, you look at the likes of, Noah Cobb, or you look at these likes of George Campbell, and you ask yourself, okay, what is the best way that these guys can learn the ropes, or these guys can start to really understand that this is not only something that they do for fun anymore, right? This is their job, right? And so, and I think, the quicker they can understand that and still have fun with it, and still, have the beauty and the passion and all of that comes, all of the above that comes with it, but learn from the guys that have been doing that job for a very long time. And learn the ins and outs. And I think, within those situations of these kids that are moving around or whatever it may be, you have kids that are moving from different states now, staying in foster family homes and playing in youth, even with Atlanta United, you have kids from Tennessee, you have kids from Miami, you have kids that are moving from all over the country within the Southeast to follow the dream of becoming a professional soccer player. And that's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. And that's whether they're 14 years old, whether they're 16 years old, still a lot of pressure on their shoulders. So helping them understand their accountabilities and responsibilities of, speaking to people with experience, speaking to people who have been there, done that, and just also knowing the rights and wrongs, the do's and don'ts, and learning the ropes can be so important to kind of, guide them hopefully towards, if it's soccer for the rest of their lives, then their successful career within that, but also use those same tips and guides if whatever they choose to do in life. Those same tips and guides can kind of, be the best of use for them.
All right, what's going on at Beyond Goals Mentoring these days with you and Parky?
Everything's been great, man. We obviously we are partnering. We have now officially partnered with this organization, which is the ATLEO.
ATLEO.
Yep. Oh yeah, the ATL, the Atlanta Youth Organization, which is a nonprofit. So we are officially, and we will be certainly launching some new information soon on how to get involved and how to continue to change the youth spectrum of what soccer is, and creating as many opportunities for these kids as possible, whether it be on the field or for our nature and for our most important value of what Beyond Goals can offer is off the field, right? The mental aspect and, understanding the responsibilities and accountabilities of what we just talked about. So that's something special that we have in the works right now. And just, really trying to continue to make a change in the game as much as possible.
And we are grateful that you and Parky hang out with us on a weekly basis to kind of pull back the curtain and educate us all, not just those who play, but those who are around it, so we can understand it that much more. At BG Mentoring on the Twitters. Greg, as always, great to have you on SDH. We will catch up with you, sir, very soon.
Sounds good. See you later. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.